Today we're going to talk about two improvements made on fonts handling in PDF, starting with Xojo 2022 Release 1. The first one is that we brought back the ability to choose between embedding the fonts in the PDF file or not. So if we decide to not embed the fonts, creating a new PDF document that uses 100 different fonts, we can see how the resulting file has a really small size. In our example, it is just 252 kilobytes, which is really good. In addition, we can also see how it is even faster, both when adding new content to the PDF and also when writing the final PDF file on disk. If we choose to embed the fonts in the resulting PDF document, then we can see how the document size increases to a total of 4.2 megabytes. So you may be wondering, when should you embed the fonts or decide not to? The option to not embed the fonts is desirable when you know the PDF is going to be opened by users whose computers have exactly the same fonts installed, but not in other cases. So the text in the PDF document looks fine while it keeps the final size of the PDF small. But if you're going to create PDF documents that are going to be distributed widely and whose computers may not have the same fonts installed, then the best option is to embed the fonts. Of course, the best of both worlds is to create your PDF documents using only the fonts from the standard 14 set. These include things like Helvetica, Times, Courier, Symbol, etc. That way, there's not a need to embed other fonts in the documents, and you'll keep the file size small. The second improvement made in the PDF document in this release is related with the use of fonts that are not initially installed in the user's computer. Those that are added by the AddFonts method. For example, in this project, we're going to use two external fonts, Honey, I Stole Your Jumper and Montserrat. So when we run the example project and click on the Save PDF button, we can see how the resulting PDF document is using both fonts. In order for this to work, we need to do some extra steps in our project. The first one is adding a copy files build step to the project. Here you'll add the external fonts you want to use, setting the target subdirectory to fonts and the target destination to the resources folder. The second thing is adding a required.plist file using the ATS application fonts path key, and whose value should be the fonts folder. This will instruct the OS where to find, load, and use the external fonts. Of course, this is the same technique you can use also in your iOS apps in order to use external fonts for the creation of your PDF documents. But in that case, you'll also need to add a copy files build step, adding to it all the font files you're going to use, pointing the subdirectory target to fonts, and preferably the destination folder to resources. As you can see, we're going to use a total of 3 external fonts in our project, Honey, Montserrat, and Gypsum. Next, in the plist file, we need to add a directory entry using the fonts provided by the application key and whose contents are the names of the 3 fonts added using the copy file step. And don't forget to also include the extension of the fonts files as part of their names. So if we run our example project, we can see how the generated PDF document is using all 3 of these fonts for the header of the document, the body text, and also the bottom of the page. When using external fonts, these will be embedded in the PDF document, so it can render the text fine when opened on any device that doesn't have those fonts installed.